Today is Saturday, December 30th, 2017. This is the last teisho of the year, and it precedes our New Year's Eve Jukai ceremony, which will take place tomorrow night. This is the dark time of the year, a traditional time to reflect, as so many traditions do, on what is the eternal light at the core of our life. For us at Endless Path, this means looking into the practice of realization and the possibility of awakening to what always resides in truth and at peace. There are many reasons we may begin the practice of Zen, some profound and selfless, some trivial and self-centered. Each can be valuable, perhaps just enough at the right time to get our car in gear or to keep us going. As we go farther, we begin to find more valid reasons to continue. We may also discover there can be many challenges and obstacles along the way. For example, nothing may seem to happen, and in time, we may grow disenchanted. Our practice can seem like so much work, so much fruitless effort, just another burden. Then our initial enthusiasm can wane, and we may look for paths for more immediate compensation, something with greater flash or a quicker fix, or maybe something may happen, and we think, okay, that's Zen, now I understand it, and we slough off. We've gained a cookie or a feather for our cap and may settle there for a short or long time in what's called a lesser grade of Bodhisattvahood. Or we find as we go on that we start to realize just how far we actually have to go to really get to the placeless place where the old worthies, men and women both, lived with so much vitality, creativity, compassion, and joy, which can be demoralizing, to say the least. Oh my gosh, it's still that far ahead? Possibilities for deepening abound in our Zen practice. For each of these can be an opportunity to recommit and go deeper. And yet, with opportunities come problems too. It has been said that Zen is about enlightenment, which is true enough. But it is not quite true. Zen is about practice enlightenment practice, which is ultimately about complete ordinariness and at the same time real transformation. But transformation to or into what? Into what we've always been, but just didn't know it. What is it to be human? What are we capable of? In the process of Zen training, we touch base with and begin to shift from our habitual, conditioned self-centeredness to something closer to original mind, the original mind of all beings, which is the heart-mind of the Bodhisattva. Our purpose on earth, we might say as human beings, is to become of benefit to all beings, human and non-human alike, trees, mountains, rivers, animals, dust. When some traditions say humans are the crown of creation, this is what they mean. Not that it all feeds up to and serves us, but that rather we ourselves have the potential to be of benefit to all. This is what it is to be a truly mature, grown-up human being. Of course, we all carry things, thoughts, habits, and so on, from our own endless past that prevents us from being selflessly functioning human beings. This is where our Bodhisattva vows, or great vows for all, and the commitment of Jukai come in. No matter what we're dealing with, we can vow to work it out, to work on it, and mature through it. We can take our stand in this commitment. This is why I so often share Jatakas with you. In the Jatakas, we see the Buddha working on it, facing himself and his own particular issues and growing with and through them, always making the choice to go courageously on, to take one more decisive step. The path of the Bodhisattva set out on the way to Buddhahood is marked by vows. Like marriage vows, such vows hold us steady when circumstance and our own minds conspire to move us to a lesser path or return us to an old, self-involved, self-centered way of thinking, being, and doing. The way of the Buddha is actually the way of the Bodhisattva. Buddhas practice the vows of the Bodhisattva, which is how they realize innate Buddhahood. Bodhisattvas, we might say, are Buddhas in action in life. So our great vows for all, or 4 vows, are the Zen way of keeping our deepest purpose, our real heart's aspiration awake. The many beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them all. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them all. Buddha's way is unattainable. I vow to embody it all. To actualize these vows, not just as a soothing formula that we repeat by rote after Zazen, we need to come in touch with our own deepest, most universal mind, which means the practice of daily Zazen and of committed, ongoing practice. Sesshin exemplifies this, for it means to touch the mind. In the process of daily Zazen of Doksan, which means courageously going alone, teisho, the presentation of the shout, that is receiving the heart's cry of the Dharma, Zazenkai and chanting, we rediscover our own so often dormant courage, our compassion, perseverance, vigor, generosity, and morality, the paramitas or perfections which actualize in ordinary daily life the ultimate reality that form is only emptiness, emptiness only form, the heart of Prajna Paramita. In a few days, we will have our transition into the new year with our annual Jukai ceremony. In this beautiful little ceremony, passed on in the 13th century by Dogen Kigen from his teacher Ru Jing, we reestablish our faith in and commitment to the precepts of good character, by which non-retrograde living practice, as well as fulfillment of the paramitas and of our great vow itself, become ordinary and real, become our daily bread. This is a deep reminder that we do not practice to get enlightenment, have a kensho, and then go off and have a great time the rest of our life. We practice enlightenment to realize practice and be constantly transformed into what we've always been. That is to bring forth the heart of the Bodhisattva. Through practice over time, we learn to live so as to bring greater benefit and welfare to all beings. This is a lifelong, actually according to Buddhist tradition, a many lifetime endeavor. The good news is that over time, little by little, we get better at it. Floundering becomes only stumbling. Stumbling becomes occasionally tripping. Occasionally tripping and falling becomes getting back up and walking. Zen is the way of the Bodhisattva. And at its core, it can help us realize that the Bodhisattva is no other than ourselves. In facing the difficulties of this world with that knowledge, not a concept, but knowledge down in the bones, we gradually become able to do something about it. Live it, mean it, change our petty thoughts and behaviors into something more truly universally human. Many have human form, but how many are truly human beings? This is our challenge, the challenge of the Buddha way. It is the challenge of growing up. That challenge today also means growing beyond what our culture offers. We have to grow up even if our culture offers us very little in that direction. Hence, initiations like Jukai become deeply important. They are the stones of a deeper, more ancient path being set firmly in place. Shakyamuni Buddha is our model. He shows us this path with the story of his life and with the Jatakas, life after life, difficulty after difficulty, challenge after challenge. He worked humbly towards greater wisdom and compassion. He developed courage. He found faith in something genuinely meaningful, and he gained strength and power for the way by facing his own life circumstances. You can take those endless lives of practice realization as metaphorical or literal. The point is that he never turned away, never willingly gave up the aspiration to persevere toward the highest, no matter what. This we can each in our own way take to heart. There will be challenges and difficulties. Life is short and not all rosy, but we can learn to respond to what's on our plate with greater creativity and freedom. The irony, of course, is that wisdom and compassion are our nature. Yet ancient habits of self-centeredness run so deep, we often can't see or act on or from them. Practice gives us the courage to acknowledge our failures and help us find the strength to try again. Taking Jukai, reciting great vows for all from the heart, working on breath practice and on continuous ongoing koan practice is how our vow is actualized. It is work, and it is joyous and difficult, liberating and frustrating. When Bodhidharma came across the sea to China at an advanced age, he met the Emperor Wu, who had heard about this new teacher. "What is the highest teaching?" he asked. "Vast emptiness, no holiness," answered Bodhidharma. "Who are you before me?" responded the emperor. "That is, aren't you a holy man?" Bodhidharma replied, "I don't know." And by that he did not mean duh. Later, Prince Chi asked if the emperor knew who Bodhidharma was. The emperor said, "I don't know." Was this the same or different from Bodhidharma's answer? Prince Chi answered, "He is the Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, come to transmit the Buddha mind seal." The emperor felt regret and would have sent messengers after Bodhidharma. Prince Chi said, "Even if you sent the whole country after him, he would not turn back." This is case 1, Hekiganroku, Blue Cliff Record. Bodhidharma was not just some gruff old guy disdainfully judging the emperor's limited conventional understanding. He was not a Zen show-off. He was the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva of fathomless compassion, transmitting the Buddha mind seal. What is the heart-mind of this Bodhisattva? The 8th century Indian Buddhist monk saint Shantideva presents perhaps the most complete version of the Bodhisattva vow in his Bodhikaryavattara, or the Way of the Bodhisattva. The story goes that he was a layman working at the great Buddhist learning center of Nalanda, or maybe a simple monk, who all the learned monks treated there as a mere groundskeeper and simpleton. One day there was some kind of Dharma challenge, and all were to give responses. Shantideva, so the story goes, rose cross-legged in the air and recited the many chapters of his Way of the Bodhisattva, which has since become a staple and lengthy study in Tibetan Buddhist tradition. At Vermont Jataka Sesshin, Shunyana Roshi has a sliver of one chapter, which we all recite in unison before morning Doksan, morning Zazen and Doksan. This is not her translation, but it will do to give you the essence, the Way of the Bodhisattva. As long as diseases afflict living beings, may I be the doctor, the medicine, and also the nurse who restores them to health. May I fall as rain to increase the harvest that must feed living beings, and in ages of dire famine, may I myself serve as food and drink. May I be an unending treasury for those who are desperate and forlorn. May I manifest as what they require and wish to have near them. My body, every possession, all goodness, past, present, and future, without remorse, I dedicate to the well-being of the world. Suffering is transcended by total surrender, and the mind attains to nirvana. As one day all must be given up, why not dedicate it now to universal happiness? My bodily powers I dedicate to the well-being of all that lives. Should anyone wish to kill, abuse, or beat me, the responsibility is purely their own. Should anyone wish to ridicule me and make me an object of jest and scorn, why should I possibly care if I have dedicated myself to others? Let them do as they wish with me, so long as it does not harm them. May no one who encounters me ever have an insignificant contact. Regardless, those whom I meet respond toward whether those whom I meet respond towards me with anger or faith. May the mere fact of our meeting contribute to the fulfillment of their wishes. May the slander, harm, and all forms of abuse that anyone should direct towards me act as a cause of their enlightenment. May I be a protector to the helpless, a guide to those traveling the path, a boat to those wishing to cross over, or a bridge or a raft. May I be land for those requiring it, a lamp for those in darkness. May I be a home for the homeless and a servant for the world. In order to fulfill the needs of beings, may I be as a magic gem, an inexhaustible vase, a mystic spell, a cure-all medicine, and a wish-granting tree. May I act as the mighty earth, or like the free and open skies, to support and provide the space whereby all and others may, and all others, whereby I and all others may grow, until every being afflicted by pain has reached nirvana's shores. May I serve only as a condition that encourages progress and joy, just as all previous Buddhas first gave rise to the precious Bodhi mind, and just as then carefully followed the stages of the Bodhisattva disciplines. Likewise, for the sake of sentient beings, do I now myself generate the Bodhi mind, that is the mind of bodhicitta, aspiration toward Buddhahood. And likewise will I train myself in the disciplines of a bodhisattva. Zen, which can seem so mental, even clever, is really about awakening and transforming the heart. As Hakuin wrote, it is like an ocean. The further you go into it, the deeper it gets. It is like a mountain. The more you climb it, the higher it gets. But this deepening and rising requires continuous practice. There are so many places we can stop, find a nice view to enjoy, and settle down. We can even turn back, never asking ourselves to actually do what we originally vowed, what we set off to do and accomplish. That is, embody the unattainable way of matured humanity. Hakuin says that practice after some degree, no matter how small, of realization is where practice can really sink in, almost as if this is where it really begins. It is not that after a lot of work we get something, can now do less. Rather, we can now begin to do more. And it is our vow, the vow that is realization itself, that keeps us going. This is not simply a vow in words. The words can prime the pump. It is the vow of the flower to turn toward the sun, the vow of the peach pit to become a peach. This vow is our whole being. The words simply allow us to become conscious of it, to access it, and to keep at it lest we again drift away and forget. But to be honest, once we've taken vows, even that forgetting arouses something, some memory, some tang of regret that in time leads us onward again. This vow, which means our own deepest and most basic commitment toward our highest and deepest potential as human beings, is the heart of the Buddha way. We are not simply Zen Buddhists. We are followers of and disciples of the Buddha. When we take Jukai, we are received into the Buddha's family. This is not simply a formality. No longer outsiders, we find that the way is not just a path, but is our home. To open up that home, move in, and live in it requires steadiness and a willingness to not just put our old world back in place after Zazen or Sesshin, but to allow greater openness and insight to permeate our lives and change our behaviors. This is not just a chore. It is a realm and activity of some wonder, something also sorely lacking in our current world. Wonder. There's a song of Leonard Cohen's that brilliantly presents the view of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. It shows it from the other side, the side of the awakened and actualized vow, after her arms have shattered into 1,000 arms. His head burst into 11 heads, after her great, magnificent failure to simply and straightforwardly save all beings. That song is The Heart with No Companion. Perhaps you know it. Let me recite it to you. Now I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and so shattered, it will reach you everywhere. And I sing this for the captain whose ship has not been built, for the mother in confusion, her cradle still unfilled, for the heart with no companion, for the soul without a king, for the prima ballerina who cannot dance to anything. Through the days of shame that are coming, through the nights of wild distress, though your promise count for nothing, you must keep it nonetheless. You must keep it for the captain whose ship has not been built, for the mother in confusion, her cradle still unfilled, for the heart with no companion, for the soul without a king, for the prima ballerina who cannot dance to anything. How does all this seemingly splendid stuff relate to the little, simple, difficult, ordinary task of ongoing breath practice or koan practice? So often we yearn for something wonderful and spiritual out beyond our own little life. But what if Mu is this very sickness, this present anxiety, this stench of garbage, this cough, this disappointment, this sorrow, this aging unto death? This does not make my pain or your pain or anyone's pain into something wonderful. My cough is not radiant, lights don't shine, perfumes don't billow, angels don't descend, and yet this life, just as it is, opens up. It buds. Buddha may have the same root word as to bud. Bud, Buddha, to open. To realize this, not as a concept, but truly, that is to awake into it, is to be able to live and age and die with a bit more equanimity, compassion, courage, fearlessness, and joy. This is why we're here. This is why we found this path and the fellowship of each other, of this Sangha. This ideal to realize what is highest of the human mind and use it for the benefit of all is lofty. None of us approach the ideal. We all have shortcomings, weaknesses, fears, bad habits, self-centeredness. Roshi Kapleau used to say that enlightenment doesn't wipe any of these things away, but it helps us see them clearly and helps us to gain the resolve and strength to work on them and free ourselves from them and move past them. Even a slight realization shows us that such things are not fundamentally who or what we truly are. This work of seeing past our deepest dualistic and self-centered delusions and working to be free of them to the benefit of all is an endless process, an endless path. Making Dharma vows, upholding our great vows for all, receiving Jukai, and continuing on is one of the many forms it takes. In the extraordinary brand new translation by Norman Waddell of the massive compilation of Hakuin's writings, The Complete Poison Blossoms from a Thicket of Thorns. Last year, he brought out Poison Blossoms from a Thicket of Thorns, which was a huge book. Turns out it was only a portion. This year, he brought out The Complete Poison Blossoms, and it's a magnificent work. I've really been stunned by it. Hakuin, in his commentary on the Heart Sutra, puts it like this. Bodhisattva, an enlightened being, a great being. In Chinese, he's the sentient being of great heart. Entering the three ways, he takes on our suffering. Joyfully appearing unbidden throughout the world, vowing not to accept the fruit of partial awakening. He deepens his attachment in working to save others. Even should the great void completely cease to exist, his struggle to save sentient beings would never end. He concludes his commentary on the Heart Sutra with this personal vow. My verses finished, I press my palms together and pray. Empty space may cease, but my vow will never end. Any merit my praising of wisdom brings, I transfer to others, that they may gain the realm of suchness. Trusting myself to the Buddhas of the three worlds, to Zen patriarchs, and all sages in the 10 directions, to every deva, naga, and demon guarding the law, and all the gods in this land of the mulberry tree, that's Japan. I pray that all the brethren that reside with me here will, with steadfast resolve and diamond-hard minds, move with dispatch to penetrate through the barrier, then keeping the precepts gem ever perfectly bright in mind, while sweeping clear all demons of delusion, will benefit without rest the vast suffering multitudes. And to remove possible purple prose or grandmotherliness from this teisho, let me quote one more thing from Hakuin's great writings. A person who aspires to give rise to the Bodhi mind must once experience an unqualified kensho. Then he must proceed to rip the divine, death-dealing koans to shreds, yank out the claws and fangs of the Dharma cave, make his way through impenetrable thickets, thousands of leagues of thorn and briar, and trample over thousands of secret, firmly shut barriers. He must carefully investigate the sutras and commentaries, both partial and complete, and master the scriptures and sacred writings of other traditions as well, acquiring a boundless store of great Dharma assets. He must then extend the great gift of Dharma to all beings, benefiting and liberating them so they can all perfect the Buddha wisdom within. This is the practice of the perfectly achieved Bodhisattva. We ourselves begin again with this breath, this life challenge, these vows, and with tomorrow's Jukai. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.